こんばんは。いらっしゃいませ。Welcome to Paprika Girl's probably one-off midnight diner. It is quite literally midnight here in Tokyo. Upstairs on the second floor of the Okandake Yashiki, my beloved husband is recording his lessons for the week, and I am here pondering the flattering invitation from my beloved friend, Mr. Extra Wonton, on X, to begin a podcast. It is quite a big thing to start a podcast, since I probably have nothing of value to offer. I am not experienced in radio, nor do I have the equipment to begin such an endeavor. Just this Tascam linear PCM recorder DRO5 here, which I use occasionally on film sets. However, I am sufficiently tipsy enough to give it a go. I'm not necessarily a heavy drinker, but I am a social one. And today I had a delightful social engagement, about which I shall tell you. In addition, I don't know anything about podcast music, but this here playing on my iPhone is called Matsu no Midori. It was written by Kinya Saburo on the occasion of the social debut of his daughter, Sei. I am playing it because today I was told by my dance teacher that I must perform this one later this year, so I'm refreshing my memory. So, today, on the seasonal day of CHABAN, Benibana Sakau, I have spent the afternoon with my dance teacher in Asakusa. There was a delightful variety stage at the Asakusa Kaikan. Before I tell you about the stage, allow me to explain shoman, which is written small fullness. You don't use manzoku no man. It occurs in late May and is afterwards followed by 3 steps. Kaiko okite kuwaoku. Second, benibana sakau. And lastly, bakushu itaru. We are currently in benibana sakau, which refers to the blossoming safflower. I could go on to explain how the original name of the benibana was kure no ai, referring to its dyeing processes adapted from China during the 6th century, but then I would never get around to regaling the rest of the day. So, Asakusa Kaikan. Today, I was delighted to see an abundance of white kimonos. I too wore a white shoken tsumugi hitoe, hand-painted with a yomogi grass design in gray blue and nadeshiko-iro pink. My teacher too, she'd worn a striking white chirimen with a geometric black komon pattern. She always looks like perfection embodied, and she lost a bit of weight too, of which I was quite envious, and am now determined to not have breakfast tomorrow, in imitation of her forbearance. Another striking element of her ensemble was her fan, which bore a hand-drawn katsuo fish. Now, what does katsuo have to do with May? Well, this is a rambling podcast, so let me tell you. May is the month in which Hatsu-katsuo appears on the sushi counter. And I think that's bonito in English. Fishermen, please add me, as I know nothing of your art. But let me give you 2 lovely literary examples. The first is Yamaguchi Sodo, an Edo period haiku poet. That's late 1600s, probably. He wrote the following. 目には青葉、山ほどとぎす、初かつお. Referring to seeing fresh green leaves, the hototogisu bird, which I have no idea what it is in English, and of course the katsuo. I do not have my computer at hand, so I'm not looking anything up. So if there are any ornithologists listening, please feel free also to add me politely and enlighten me with your knowledge. Next, I refer to the immortal poet Basho, a contemporary of Yamaguchi, who around the same time wrote the following. Kamakura wo wikitte idekemu Hatsu-katsuo, the first katsuo to come out of Kamakura. Both of those haiku use katsuo as the seasonal reference. Now, explain. Those who've been in Japan for some time will have noted how there is a grand display of the pricey first purchase of a large tuna during Oshokatsu in January. The same thing has been occurring for hundreds of years, in fact, the purpose of which is meant to inspire the economy. Look how much we can afford, hooray! It's quite an investment, because now that delicious fish has been properly filleted, it must be recouped within a day or two, right? Anyway, that sort of ostentatious display was popular for katsuo in May too. It was written by Takarai Kikaku, Hatsu-katsuo ichiryo made wa kabuki ya. Essentially, I'll buy a katsuo for 60,000 yen-ish. Note, after that a certain high price was attained by Sakai, yes. Sakai, actually. Mr. Sakai Ichimonji Mitsuhide on X. No, not him. A kabuki actor by the name of Nakamura Utaemon. He purchased a katsuo for 3 ryo, or, very loosely, about 190,000 yen. Please, don't at me, economists. I don't know precisely how much a ryo is in modern yen, and I don't particularly care at the moment. This fine bottle of Aizu Chujo is keeping me from being nitpicky. Anyway, it was because of Nakamura, who was referencing Takarai, who was referencing poets like Basho and Yamaguchi, that the Nakamura-za, which was his kabuki troupe, commissioned a play called Tsuyu Koso de Mukashi Hachijo from prolific writer Kawatake Mokugami, which directly referenced that very purchase in the scene called Tomiyoshicho Shinsan Naiba. It's a conversation between a fish seller and a couple of buyers who get drunk and pay too much for fish. Anyhow, that's a lot of background information just to tell you why my dance teacher was carrying a katsuo fan. But that is essentially Japanese culture in a nutshell. Everything, and I do mean everything, has a reason and a purpose. I mean no disrespect, but I have traveled extensively. And as a child, when I would take interest in something and ask why, there was very rarely an answer, no matter where I was. I do care deeply about the who and the when and the why, and Japanese culture is extremely satisfying in that regard. I'm getting off track. Anyway, about the performance. It featured first a Showa-style song and dance routine by 2 handsome young men pulling the rickshaw in Asakusa. Yes, those guys. Those gentlemen, usually on a track team or from a sports university, have created a national association to support the tradition in tourist areas. To promote their activities, they have recently created a sort of kanban musical, or mascot faces, essentially, in the form of a Johnny's boy band, complete with corny Showa songs and dances. When attending performances, you may also notice them selling bromides, which are flattering photographs of the singers. This, too, is actually a very old tradition. It used to be ukiyo-e sold, those woodblock prints of kabuki actors. And later, when cameras took over, bromide photographs usurped that spot. You know the goods sold at boy bands or girl band idol concerts. It's precisely the same thing, and this is where it comes from. After their 3 songs was a performance by the Asakusa Furisode. These are essentially geisha. In Kyoto, geisha are called geiko, and in Tokyo and other places they are called geisha. But in order to create a distinction, in Asakusa they are called furisode. It is reference to their long sleeves. Long sleeves, green sleeves. Did you know Henry VIII didn't write that, as it didn't appear in England until after his death? And it's a surprisingly risque song, too. What drinking banter this is. Midnight Diner, indeed. The other day I was listening to a charming podcast by Summit to Sea. Or was it Bean Pod? I still have that sticker, by the way. Anyway, Summit to Sea do consider a sticker giveaway because stickers are wonderful. Yes, I think it was you. You were enjoying a happy beer and rambling on as I am doing now, and it was a lovely podcast. I felt as if I were right there with you, drinking. My, oh my. I could write a book about the depth of the culture of nominication. Maybe one day when I'm less busy. Anyhow, this recording is dedicated to you, Summit to Sea, because we are now enjoying a drink in my midnight diner here, featuring a Sphinx cat, it would seem. Anyway, after the furisode, who performed a modern zashiki odori, which is a dance with multiple performers designed to be shown in close confines like an izakaya, we viewed a remarkable performance with delightful Ichikawa Kudanji and elegant onnagata Hayashi Yuki. An onnagata is a kabuki dancer who, though male, performs female roles. Now, this is not an alphabet army drag queen thing. It is an art with a very complex tradition of training, including makeup, ensemble, and delivery. And Hayashi Yuki is an excellent performer, and I do recommend looking for him as he dances regularly. Ichikawa Kudanji is a very handsome man indeed, and even better in person. After today's performance, my dance master and I, who I call Mama actually, yes, I will just call her Mama from now on, Mama and I graced the establishment where the after party was held, and were fortunate enough to be seated near Ichikawa Kudanji and his entourage, and then fortunate enough to have a couple of empty seats at our table, which were then, fortunately, eventually graced by the lovely backside of Mr. Ichikawa himself. Goodness, some people really have excellent presence. It is a tenshoku, a holy calling, a mission from God. Yes, I'm from Chicago, so that's not sacrilegious. That particular establishment is where everyone goes after performances, after matsuri, after events. It is the beating heart of Asakusa. Mama and I go there every time we visit Asakusa, and I realize while recording this that I unfortunately cannot reveal where it is, because though I am drunk, I recognize that it defies decency to do so. Some anaba must be preserved for the locals. But I will take you one day, if we are ever drinking in Tokyo, and you are a sufficiently well-mannered gentleman. I admit, and you have noticed, that we have had far too much sake today, Mama and I. But she's such a delightful drinking buddy, and similarly equipped to handle her liquor. So, we make a pair indeed. I'd love to record a podcast with her, but she speaks not a lick of English and turns into silly putty in front of a camera. And you trust me, she has such a presence that I have tried. So, back to the performance. After Ichikawa and Hayashi's rendition of Matsuri, there was another zashiki dance by the geisha of Hachioji and Mukojima. And they were all seasonal dances, such as Harusame and that sort. And yes, Mochizuki Tazae. The Hayashi ensemble was the highlight of the show indeed. Now, Mochizuki Tazae is the daughter of Mochizuki Dazaemon, who is a Ningen Kokuho. That is a living national treasure. She plays, of all things, the taiko. Now, I'm not particularly versed in the art of hayashi, so I won't make a fool of myself trying to remember the proper terminology. But it's an ensemble of a number of different drums and percussion instruments, and a flute, which I cannot remember the name. But the beauty of it lies in the subtle timing, or ma, that creates a concentrated atmosphere. It is an art of control. You must experience the hayashi in person to understand how truly magical it is, because no explanation of mine could possibly do it justice. Second to Mochizuki Tazai ensemble was the Kingente Basho group. He had 2 deshi. Deshi are apprentices. Now, Kingente Basho is a rakugo performer. I had an opportunity to speak to him at the after party, and he seems to have not yet performed in Kichijoji. That's my little corner of Tokyo. His team of 3 men danced as well, and I found them to be hilarious and expressive, and much better than the geisha dances, to be honest. In vino veritas, in sake veritas. Sake ni shinjitsu ari. Kingente is well worth seeing in person, so I do hope I sufficiently convinced them to perform in my neighborhood. It wasn't rakugo, it was dance. Did I say that already? And they performed the dances Kawataro, Tsuboran, Yozakura, which was lovely because it's usually an onnagata piece, but was hilarious when performed by the elderly master himself with no particular makeup of any sort. Finally, they performed a kyogen, which is a comedy piece, rather like a conte, or skit in English. It's called CHABAN. CHABAN in English is nonsense, which is probably an appropriate name for this podcast as well. Yes, I shall call it Midnight Diner CHABAN. The show was ended by a glorious dance with all participating parties, lively and Tokyo themed. I must mention at this point the furisode dancer Shinobu, who I did not see at the after party. She's usually wearing a gold-colored kimono, as the girls have these theme colors. Well, she has the most adorable, expressive, charming face while dancing. It is shaped precisely like a pumpkin. None of the other girls has the it which she has. So, go find a performance of the Asakusa Furisode and look for the girl with the pumpkin face. Or, no, let your eyes gravitate to the most charming face on the stage, and that will most definitely be Shinobu. Anyhow, I don't know how long I have been speaking. In addition, I seem to have left the window open to the engawa. Can you hear the rain? I don't know how much my little Tascam is picking up. Upstairs, my husband seems to have finished his recording as well, so that's the end of the night for me. In vino veritas, in aqua sanitas. So I have to go get a drink of water, and then off to bed for me. I do hope I have not bored you too much, nor made too much of a donkey of myself. But in the very least, I have proven that I will be a very dull podcaster. I doubt I shall ever do this again. But, kanpai, otsukare-sama, and do pick up a nice bottle of Aizu Chujo and record a much better story than myself. Oyasumi.